Rainbow Six Siege, a game where two teams are tasked with alternately attacking and defending a variety of maps with varied objectives. As each team is asymmetrically equipped, the task of evaluating possible strategies and discussing tactics with your team is paramount. Wait, team-based cooperation, interesting visual style, actual planning? This can't be right. Ah, right. Due process. On paper, Due Process shares a fair amount of similarity to the FPS juggernaut that is Rainbow Six Siege. Both are team-based, with a focus on completing a given objective rather than simply eliminating the enemy force. Both also share their unique selling point, the asymmetry inherent to attacking and defending a given map. Beyond this point, though, the similarities cease, the finer details and execution of this concept where Due Process looks to carve out its own niche. Best to start with the general rundown and get into my personal impressions later, the what and how before the why. Each match of Due Process plays out in a set of 6 games, the first team to 4 win claiming overall victory. The teams are divided as attackers and defenders, swapping after 3 games. Reinforcing the core asymmetry, these teams vary in everything from weapons to looks. The attackers all nearly identical enforcers of the game's dystopian framing device, armed with high-tech weaponry and equipment. The defenders, on the other hand, forced to make do with a motley variety of gear and weapons of times past, fitting for an underground rebel force. At the beginning of each game, both teams select their gear from the limited, finite supply of their base, and open up the tactical map to discuss strategy. This phase is critical, as poor communication or tactics can be disastrous. But, as daunting as it initially seems, the skill of knowing where to be and what to say comes quickly. After the planning phase is the execution phase, where the plans and teamwork of both teams is tested in 2 minutes of nail-biting action. A low time to kill means engagements end quickly, and with friendly fire a real possibility, teamwork is even more greatly emphasized. Noted prior, the gear you begin the game with is finite. If you die in the field, your gear is dropped, potentially lost unless a surviving teammate chooses to pick it up. For example, should the attacking team lose both explosive activating clackers in their first game, they will remain lost for the subsequent 2, in turn limiting their options and allowing the defending team a clearer idea of what to expect and how to prepare. As you've been seeing, the visual style leans retro, evocative of late-era PS1 games or the original Counter-Strike, a design choice that serves several purposes surprisingly well. Being a game so wholly focused on the gameplay, the blocky textures, sharp edges, and bold colors all lend themselves extremely well to the instant readability required by said focus. At the same time, as a new indie game in a saturated market, the need to be eye-catching is paramount, so having a style that does both is fairly inspired. Rounding out the rundown with some technical specs. While it ran smoothly on my fairly beefy setup, the minimum requirements on Steam indicate that pretty much any level of PC should be able to manage without issue. As for settings, the variety on offer is appreciated for a game of this scale, with everything you'd expect present and accounted for. I'll also note the welcome addition of a default team option should you not desire to roll the dice with whatever Steam names your teammates have. Personal impressions now, and that Siege joke at the beginning was very much intentional. As someone who's played a good amount of Siege, it never really felt like it fully committed to its original selling point of tactical attack defense. So, when another game comes along with basically the same selling point and executes it so much better, it grabs my attention immediately. As bare bones as Due Process is, there's a whole lot to like. It feels deliberate in a lot of ways. Lots of small systems and design decisions all focused on making the play as honed and as clean as possible. There are loads of examples of this focus, so I'll just pick a few. While the choice of weapons is limited, each one feels distinct and purposeful. As such, your plan of action and the layout of the map will influence what you choose. The attackers in their body armor come with extra health, the devs recognizing the inherent advantage of the defenders and evening the playing field subtly without either side feeling particularly favored. The maps. Each match rotates through the 3 maps currently available. Both to avoid repetition and encourage tactical thinking over memorization, the layouts of each are semi-random. Apparently, these layouts are procedurally generated, before being checked over by a human to achieve the necessary variety while still being playable. All this definitely goes a long way towards forming a unique and interesting game with a lot of room to grow, as the core elements are already so well established. Admittedly best enjoyed with a group of friends, my experience playing with randoms has been surprisingly decent, with bad apples the exception rather than the norm. Due Process is tactics done right, and if that appeals to you like it does to me, it's available on Steam now. This has been the Indie Nomad, and if you found this video helpful, feel free to give it a like. I'd sure appreciate it.